Welcome, dear listener. You have chosen to spend your time in a quiet and gentle place, a place where the worries of the day are allowed to fade softly into the background. As you settle in, perhaps lying down or resting in a comfortable chair, I invite you to let this story wash over you like the calm rhythm of a tide. Tonight, we will embark together on a journey not through a single myth nor one chapter of history, but through the wide tapestry of human imagination. It will be a slow, careful wandering, one that stretches across civilizations and centuries, where each turn of the path reveals a tale, a god, a hero, or a dream born long ago. This is not a hurried adventure. There are no deadlines here, no sharp edges, no rush to arrive at the ending. Instead, this is a gentle drifting, like a leaf carried downstream, like a boat rocking steadily on still waters. As I speak, you may find yourself drifting too. Perhaps your eyes will grow heavy. Perhaps you will slip into dreams. That is entirely as it should be, for the purpose of these stories is not only to teach, but also to soothe. History and mythology have always been companions to sleep. Long before books were written, before screens glowed in the dark, people gathered around fires to tell stories. The flickering of the flames matched the cadence of a storyteller's voice. Children listened with eyes half closed, drifting between the warmth of the fire and the vastness of imagination. Adults listened too, finding in the myths a way to understand the world, or at least to marvel at it. Those nights by the fire became the birthplace of legends, legends that traveled across deserts, sailed upon ships, and followed caravans along winding roads. And so tonight, we are not so different from those early listeners. Though the fire may have been replaced by the hum of electricity, the heart of the experience remains the same. You are here to listen, and I am here to tell. Together, we will trace the steps of gods and heroes, sages and wanderers, from the rivers of Mesopotamia to the mountains of Greece, from the temples of Egypt to the forests of the Norse north. Each story will be told softly, carefully, in tones that invite not excitement, but peace. This introduction is a doorway, and like all doorways, it asks for a moment of pause before you step through. Imagine standing at the threshold of an ancient library, its shelves filled with scrolls, its air carrying the scent of parchment and dust. The torches flicker along stone walls, and silence stretches in every direction. This is where we stand now, before the shelves of myth and memory. As we walk forward, we will not rush to unroll every scroll. Instead, we will lift one, then another, letting their words drift into the stillness of the night. The rhythm of myth is like the rhythm of breathing. Inhale, the world begins, gods are born, rivers carve their way through stone. Exhale, kingdoms rise and fall, heroes struggle and rest, night returns again. This cycle is not just the rhythm of stories, but the rhythm of sleep itself. And so as we move forward together, you may find the cadence of my voice aligning with your own breathing. Slow, steady, calming. Why do myths matter? Why, in an age of machines and satellites, should we care about the stories whispered by shepherds or inscribed on temple walls thousands of years ago? The answer is simple, yet deep. Myths are not just tales of gods. They are reflections of us. They reveal our fears, our hopes, our questions about where we come from and where we are going. They hold within them the echoes of humanity's earliest dreams. Listening to them is like listening to the heartbeat of time itself. But tonight, we will not analyze them as scholars might. We will not dissect their meanings with sharp tools of reason. Instead, we will let them wash over us like lullabies. When you hear of a god rising from the sea, you need not wonder about symbolism or psychology. Simply picture the endless waves, their soft crashing against a shore, their timeless embrace. When you hear of a hero descending into the underworld, you need not weigh the allegory. Simply imagine the stillness of deep caves, the quiet hum of earth beneath stone. Let these images rest lightly on your mind, like feathers drifting downward. Each section of this journey will be a new chapter in that lullaby. Some will speak of beginnings, where worlds are born from darkness. Others will speak of endings, where gods fall silent and civilizations fade. There will be rivers, mountains, skies filled with constellations, and lands beneath the earth where souls wander. At times, the stories may swell with battles of gods and giants. but even these will be told gently, like distant thunder rather than sudden storms. As we begin, let us take one final moment to set the scene. Imagine that you are not in your room or your bed, but in a timeless space, half dream, half memory. You lie beneath a sky filled with stars that never fade. A breeze moves softly, carrying with it the whispers of ancient voices. The ground beneath you is cool and steady, and the world around you feels endless. From this place, every story is within reach. Every myth, every tale, every echo of the past. Now, the doorway is open. The library awaits. The fire has been lit, and the storyteller has begun. Rest easy, for the journey is long, but the pace is gentle. You are safe here. You are welcome here. And together, we step softly into the world of history and myth. Long before history was written in stone, before ink touched parchment, and even before the first cities rose upon the banks of rivers, there was story. Humanity has always lived in the presence of stories. They were not luxuries, nor entertainments for idle evenings. They were survival, comfort, identity, and magic woven into words. Tonight, as you rest and listen, we travel back to the very dawn of storytelling. To nights when our ancestors sat close to one another, wrapped in the warmth of firelight, and filled the air with tales of gods, spirits, and heroes. Picture, if you will, an ancient landscape. It is tens of thousands of years ago. A group of people gathers at the mouth of a cave, their small fire flickering against rough stone. The night outside is vast, filled with stars that shine sharper and clearer than most of us have ever seen. In the dark, there are mysteries, sounds of rustling animals, the sigh of the wind through trees, and the unbroken silence between heartbeats. But within the circle of the fire, there is warmth, there is community, and there is voice. One among them speaks. Perhaps it is an elder, perhaps a hunter, perhaps a dreamer. The words carry slowly, softly, over the crackle of flames. These were the first storytellers, and their audience listened not with distraction, but with rapt attention. For in those days, a story was more than entertainment. It explained the world. Why the sun rose each morning, why storms arrived, why animals roamed, and why people lived and died. A story could make sense of a chaotic and sometimes frightening universe. And so, as the words flowed, they calmed the fears of the night and gave meaning to the silence. If you close your eyes now, you might almost hear them, the echoes of those ancient voices carried across millennia. They tell of spirits that lived in the rivers and mountains, of animals that spoke in human tongues, of ancestors who walked with gods. These stories were not written down, yet they were remembered, passed along from one mouth to another, generation after generation. Each retelling was slightly different, shaped by the teller's memory and imagination, like waves reshaping the shore. Over time, these fireside tales grew into the great mythologies we know today. Mesopotamian epics, Egyptian hymns, Norse sagas, Indian scriptures, all of them carry within their grandeur the heartbeat of that original fire. But here, at the dawn, stories were simple. They may have been about the hunt, how a great beast was tracked, how the spirits of the forest blessed or cursed the hunters. They may have been about the sky, the bright lights above, too mysterious to ignore. Perhaps they were about love, about loss, about dreams of ancestors who appeared in visions. The rhythm of these stories matched the rhythm of life. The rise of the sun each morning was a story in itself, the fall of dusk another. The growing of crops, the birth of children, the passing of elders, all became woven into narratives. People needed stories as much as they needed fire, for stories gave shape to time. Without them, life was only a series of events. With them, life became a journey, a cycle, a song. Imagine lying in that ancient world, on the cool ground beneath the open sky. You hear the voice of a storyteller, slow and steady. Each pause is filled with the sound of the fire. Each breath blends with the sigh of wind. You feel safe, not because the world is safe, but because the story holds it together. In the story, there are answers. In the story, the night makes sense. This was the beginning of myth. Long before temples were built to gods, gods lived in the words of storytellers. Long before kings inscribed their victories, heroes lived in the memory of their people. These early myths may not have been recorded, but they were as real as the constellations above. And like those constellations, they offered guidance. Just as stars showed the way across seas and deserts, stories showed the way through life's uncertainties. The dawn of storytelling was also the dawn of imagination. For when the storyteller spoke of a bird that flew to the heavens, or a spirit that lived in the river, the listeners could see it, even if their eyes were closed. They painted pictures in their minds, images that were not of this world but of another. And as they imagined, they created a shared dream, a dream that held the group together. Story was not just for the individual. It was for the tribe, the community. It bound them, taught them, reminded them of who they were. Slowly, across the centuries, these stories became more elaborate. They transformed from simple explanations into complex myths. What began as a tale of the river spirit became a full creation story. What began as a hunter's tale became the saga of a hero. And as communities grew into civilizations, the storytellers became priests, scribes, and poets. The myths moved from memory into clay tablets, papyrus scrolls, and carved stone. Yet even then, their essence remained the same. They were still fireside tales, meant to comfort, to teach, and to awe. Think of the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest written stories. Within its lines we hear echoes of much earlier spoken myths. Gilgamesh may have walked in the city of Uruk, but he was also walking in the footsteps of countless unnamed heroes who came before him, carried by the breath of storytellers long lost to time. Or consider the myths of the Greek world: Zeus, Hera, Apollo, Athena. Their tales, written by poets, still hold the cadence of oral tradition. They were not invented suddenly. They were shaped, refined, and remembered over countless retellings by the fire. Tonight, as you rest, you join that same tradition. You are, in a way, seated once more beside the fire. You listen as the night stretches outward, as words fall slowly into your ear. You need not remember every detail, just as the first listeners did not. All you need is the rhythm, the gentle ebb and flow of story. For storytelling is not only about what is said, but how it feels. It is about the steady pace, the pauses that allow you to breathe, the images that drift softly through your mind. A story, especially a myth, is not a thing to be consumed quickly. It is to be carried, to be rested with, to be allowed to sink in. And as you allow this story to sink in, you are connected to all those who have ever listened before. The dawn of human storytelling was not an event that happened once. It is happening still, each time a voice carries a tale into the quiet of the night. Each time you listen, you return to that beginning. Each time you drift with a story, you walk once more at the edge of firelight, with the stars above and the world asleep around you. And so, as this section closes, let us carry forward the memory of that first dawn. A dawn where story was light, warmth, and meaning. A dawn that continues in every word spoken tonight. The journey has just begun, but already, you are part of the endless chain of listeners, dreamers, and storytellers who have kept the flame alive. When the first fireside stories had already taken root, humanity slowly began to change. The wandering bands of hunters and gatherers grew into communities. Small clusters of homes became villages, villages swelled into towns, and towns, in time, blossomed into civilizations. And with these civilizations came gods and myths greater than ever before, vast, intricate, and powerful, reflecting the new order of human life. Tonight, let us drift together across the ancient world, visiting those early civilizations whose stories still echo in our minds. We will move slowly, as though carried by a gentle current, from Mesopotamia to Egypt, to the Indus Valley and beyond. Each place holds its own myths, its own gods, and its own way of imagining the world. Yet beneath the variety lies a shared truth. All were searching for meaning, for order, for a way to understand life and death, time and eternity. Close your eyes and picture the land of Mesopotamia, the land between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Here, fertile soil gave rise to one of the world's first great civilizations. The Sumerians, then the Akkadians, the Babylonians, and the Assyrians built cities with towering walls, ziggurats rising like stairways to the heavens, and marketplaces alive with trade. In this land, myth became woven tightly with the rhythm of daily life. The people looked upon the unpredictable rivers, their floods both blessing and curse, and they imagined gods who controlled the waters. They looked upon the vast sky, alive with stars, and they imagined gods who guided destiny. Anu, the god of the heavens, Enlil, lord of the air, and Inanna, goddess of love and war. These were more than distant deities. They were forces as real as the storms, as present as the fertile earth. From this world came the epic of Gilgamesh, the tale of a king who sought immortality, only to find that even the greatest hero must face death. Told softly, like a lullaby, Gilgamesh's story is not only one of adventure but of reflection, about friendship, grief, and the limits of human power. In these myths, we see a people grappling with the eternal questions. Why are we here? Why do we die? And how do we live knowing that our time is brief? Now, let the current carry us gently down the Nile, into the land of Egypt. Here, civilization grew in rhythm with the river's yearly floods. The Nile gave water, food, and life itself. And so, the myths of Egypt were filled with cycles, death and rebirth, night and day, the endless renewal of the world. Ra, the sun god, rose each morning to sail across the sky, only to descend into the underworld at night, facing dangers and darkness before returning again at dawn. His journey mirrored the lives of the people, each day a rising, each night a resting, each year a harvest. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, was slain and resurrected, reminding all that death was not an end but a passage. Isis, his devoted wife, wove the threads of love and magic to restore him, embodying loyalty and eternal care. These myths were not distant abstractions. They were painted on temple walls, carved into tombs, whispered in prayers. To the Egyptians, life itself was sacred storytelling. The pyramids were not merely tombs. They were stairways for pharaohs to join the gods. The stars above were not only lights. They were souls, sailing eternally across the heavens. From Egypt, let us travel eastward, toward the lands of the Indus Valley. Here, among the great rivers of the Indus and the Sarasvati, another civilization rose. Though much of their script remains unread, their legacy lingers in symbols, seals, and the quiet endurance of later traditions. Their myths are harder to trace, yet we sense them in the seeds of what became the vast world of Hindu cosmology. The great cycles of creation and destruction, the endless turning of time, the sacred rivers as mothers of life, all echo in the earliest whispers of this land. The waters of the Ganges and Sarasvati, like the Nile and the Euphrates, were not only rivers but deities. To sleep under their stars was to rest in the presence of the divine. Later, from these beginnings, emerged the Vedas, songs and hymns spoken aloud, filled with gods of fire, storm, and dawn. Agni, the flame that carried offerings upward. Indra, the thunder wielder, victorious in battle. Varuna, guardian of cosmic order. These were not yet the polished myths of later Hindu epics, but the first voices of a people in awe of the cosmos. And so the pattern continues. Wherever humans gathered, myths bloomed. In China, early stories spoke of the Yellow Emperor, of Nuwa who shaped humanity from clay, of Pangu who cracked the cosmic egg to form the world. In the Americas, even as civilizations were still young, stories of earth and sky, jaguars and eagles, began to take shape. Every land, every river, every mountain seemed to awaken the imagination of those who lived beside it. Civilization gave rise to permanence. Cities meant temples. Temples meant rituals. Rituals meant gods inscribed into stone. Yet within the stillness of those grand monuments, we can still hear the soft echoes of fireside tales. For every mighty ziggurat, there was once a simple story told in the dark. For every hymn written in hieroglyphs, there was once a voice carrying a tale to children falling asleep. What makes the birth of civilizations so profound is not only the grandeur of their monuments or the power of their kings. It is the way myths became the architecture of their souls. A civilization is built of stone, wood, and clay, but also of story. Without story, the walls are empty. With story, even ruins remain alive. Think of the ruins of Babylon, now silent in the desert. Though the bricks have crumbled, the myth of Gilgamesh endures, still alive in the human imagination. Think of the Valley of the Kings, where the tombs of pharaohs lie. Though the chambers are still and the priests long gone, the story of Ra's nightly journey continues to shine. Civilizations may fall, but their myths do not. They pass from one era to another, reshaped, retold, reborn. As you rest tonight, let these civilizations drift softly through your mind. See the wide rivers, calm under moonlight. Picture the temples, their shadows stretching long across the sand. Hear the voices of priests chanting hymns, their words floating upward like smoke. And above it all, see the stars, the same stars that shone upon Sumer, upon Egypt, upon the Indus Valley. Stars that remain, even as empires rise and fall. Civilizations are not eternal, but the stories they leave behind come close. To listen to them is to touch eternity, to feel connected to all who came before. And so, as this section closes, remember that every great city began with a simple gathering, every myth with a single voice, every empire with a dream. You are part of that same chain, listening now as countless others have listened, letting the myths of civilizations carry you gently into rest. When night falls, the earth grows quiet, yet the heavens awaken. Above us spreads a vast tapestry of light, countless stars glowing in the endless dark. For ancient peoples, the sky was never empty. It was alive, a realm of mysteries and gods, of signs and stories written in light. Tonight, let us drift slowly upward, away from the rivers and temples of early civilizations, and into the starry sky that has inspired myths across the world. Close your eyes, if you wish, and picture yourself lying on the soft earth. The air is still, and above you, the night stretches infinitely. Stars gleam like scattered embers, and the moon hangs in silver silence. The ancients gazed upon this same sky, and from it they shaped meaning. They saw animals, heroes, gods, and destinies. In every twinkling point of light, they found a story. Let us begin in Mesopotamia, where some of the earliest star maps were drawn. The Babylonians, careful watchers of the heavens, saw the constellations not merely as patterns, but as messages. Each star was a word in the divine language of the gods. Their priests studied the night with devotion, believing that the movements of stars foretold the future of kings and empires. One of their myths spoke of the goddess Ishtar, who shone brightly as the planet Venus. She was a goddess of both love and war, her dual nature reflected in the way Venus rose as the morning star, bringing light before the day, and then appeared again as the evening star, shining before night. To the Babylonians, her brilliance was not only beauty, but power, the reminder that the sky itself was filled with living presence. The constellations we know today, Aries, Leo, Scorpio, trace back to their interpretations. Imagine the Mesopotamian sky, each figure traced by careful hands, each movement of a star recorded on clay tablets, each sign connected to the rhythm of life on earth. Now let us drift west, into the land of Egypt, where the night sky stretched endlessly above the desert. To the Egyptians, the heavens were a mirror of their gods. The great goddess Nut was the sky itself, her body arched protectively over the world. By day, she swallowed the sun. By night, she gave birth to it again, setting in motion the eternal cycle of time. The Milky Way was her river, flowing across the darkness, a reflection of the Nile that nourished the land. The stars were jewels upon her skin, each one shining with divine light. The Egyptians believed that the souls of the dead became stars, sailing forever in the night sky. To look upward was to see eternity, to glimpse loved ones carried into the cosmic ocean. Pharaohs, too, were tied to the stars. The pyramids were aligned with Orion's belt, for Orion was linked to Osiris, god of the afterlife. To ascend into the heavens, the pharaoh was imagined as joining the constellation itself, sailing with the gods in their eternal bark of light. From Egypt, let us wander to Greece, where storytellers gave the stars a gallery of vivid myths. To them, the constellations were living memories, woven into the sky by the hands of gods. Consider Orion, the mighty hunter. His form still shines among the stars, his belt unmistakable. The Greeks told of his arrogance, his strength, and his fate. Some said he was placed in the sky by Zeus, others that Artemis honored him after his death. Yet however the tale is told, the image endures. Orion striding forever across the heavens, pursued by the scorpion that brought his downfall. Another story lies in the constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear. The Greeks told of Callisto, a nymph transformed into a bear by jealous Hera. To spare her, Zeus placed her in the sky, along with her son, forming the Great and Little Bears. And so, what we see as guiding stars, the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, were for the Greeks eternal reminders of love, loss, and transformation. Every Greek constellation carries such a story, and each story, whispered under the night, gave comfort and wonder. For in the constellations, mortals and gods found immortality. Yet Greece was not alone in weaving sky myths. In the vast north, the Norse looked upward at the cold, glittering stars. For them, the heavens were not distant, but woven into their own world. They imagined the sky as the skull of the giant Ymir, stretched across creation after the gods had slain him. The stars were sparks from Muspelheim, the realm of fire, scattered into the darkness to light the night. To the Norse, the constellations held warriors and beasts. They saw hunters, bears, and serpents in the sky, tied to their sagas. Some stars guided their voyages across the seas. Others marked the passing of seasons. Yet always, the night sky was alive with the presence of gods and giants, echoing the struggles of their myths. Even further east, in China, the heavens were seen as a great celestial court. The stars were officials, nobles, and guardians, each with duties mirroring the order of the empire. The Jade Emperor ruled from above, and his ministers shone across the sky. To Chinese astronomers, the heavens were not chaos, but order. Each star belonged to a palace, a constellation, a role in the cosmic kingdom. The Milky Way, called the Silver River, carried its own story of love. It told of the cowherd and the weaver girl, separated by the river of stars, allowed to meet only once a year, when magpies formed a bridge across the sky. This gentle tale of longing was told beneath countless summer nights, reminding listeners of love's endurance even in separation. Across the world, the stars spoke in many voices. The Mayans of Central America built great observatories, aligning their temples with the rising of Venus. To them, the planet's movements foretold cycles of war and peace. In Polynesia, navigators read the stars like maps, guiding their canoes across endless oceans. To the Navajo, constellations were stories of balance and harmony, teaching lessons for life on Earth. Every culture, every people, lifted their eyes to the same heavens, and in the silent twinkling of stars, they found stories that gave them strength, wisdom, and comfort. As you rest tonight, think of the sky as a book, one that has been read by every generation. Each star is a word, each constellation a chapter, each myth a gentle reminder that we are part of something vast. When you gaze upon Orion, you share the vision of Greek shepherds. When you trace the Milky Way, you share the awe of Egyptian priests. When you watch Venus rise, you stand beside Babylonian astronomers. The sky is a mirror of memory. It reflects not only the light of distant suns, but the hopes, fears, and dreams of humanity. To listen to cosmic myths is to listen to the heartbeat of eternity, steady and calm, guiding us softly into night. So let the stars linger gently in your thoughts. Let the constellations drift across your imagination like slow-moving clouds. And as you breathe, steady and calm, remember that above you, the same sky continues to tell its stories. A sky filled with gods and heroes, lovers and wanderers, dreams and destinies, all waiting to be heard, as they have always been, beneath the quiet of night. Every civilization has asked the same question: where did it all begin? Long before science traced the age of stars or measured the turning of galaxies, people wondered about the origin of life, the world, and the heavens. And to answer, they told stories, myths of creation, tales of beginnings whispered by firelight and carved into stone. Tonight, let us drift softly through these origin myths, from the rivers of Mesopotamia to the icy north, from the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of India. Close your eyes and imagine the universe before time began. There is no earth, no sky, no rivers, no stars, only darkness, or perhaps only water, or perhaps a silent void waiting to awaken. Into this stillness, the first stories are born. They tell of gods who shaped the cosmos, of chaos defeated, of light breaking into shadow. And as you listen, you hear not only the birth of the world, but the birth of human imagination itself. Let us begin in Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Here, the Enuma Elish tells of the world's creation. In the beginning, there was only water, freshwater Apsu, saltwater Tiamat. From their mingling came the first gods. Yet soon chaos stirred, and conflict was born. Apsu was slain, and Tiamat, enraged, filled the void with monstrous creatures. But from the younger gods arose Marduk, strong and determined. With his net, his bow, and the winds, he fought Tiamat and split her body in two. From one half, he shaped the heavens, from the other, the earth. The story is fierce, yet when told slowly, it feels like the rhythm of waves breaking upon a shore. From chaos comes order, from water comes land, from darkness comes light. And so the Mesopotamians found meaning in their world. The rivers that sustained them were echoes of that primeval sea. The city walls reflections of Marduk's triumph over chaos. Now let us journey to Egypt, where creation was imagined not once, but many times, each city telling its own sacred beginning. In one version, there was the watery abyss called Nun, endless and formless. From this abyss rose a mound, the first land, glistening with sunlight. Upon this mound appeared Adam, the self-created God. He brought forth the first generation of deities, Shu, the air, and Tefnut, the moisture. From them came Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky. Together, they formed the world. In other tales, the lotus flower rose from the waters, and from its petals the sun emerged, bringing warmth and life. In yet another, the great goose laid the cosmic egg, from which the world was born. Each version was not a contradiction, but a harmony. Creation was vast, mysterious, and worthy of many voices. For the Egyptians, the daily rising of the sun was itself a recreation, a reminder that from the waters of chaos, order would always return. And so, as night gave way to dawn, they relived creation, not as something long past, but as something always unfolding. From Egypt, we drift northward, into the lands of the Norse. Here, creation was a colder, darker affair. In the beginning, there was only Ginnungagap, the yawning void, stretching endlessly. To the north lay Niflheim, a realm of ice and mist. To the south, Muspelheim, a realm of fire. When the heat of Muspelheim met the icy rivers of Niflheim, the ice melted, and from its drops came the giant Ymir, the first being. From Ymir's body, the world was made. His flesh became the earth, his bones the mountains, his blood the seas, his skull the sky. Sparks from Muspelheim were flung upward, becoming the stars. In this myth, creation is not gentle, but raw and elemental, a world carved from the body of a slain giant, shaped by fire and ice. Yet even in its harshness, there is beauty. To imagine the world as the body of a being is to see creation as intimate, alive, and ever-present. Let us journey next to India, where the myths of creation are as vast and cyclical as time itself. One ancient story tells of the cosmic egg, the Hiranyagarbha, golden and radiant. From it hatched the universe, and within it dwelt Brahma, the creator. In another tale, the god Vishnu lies upon the cosmic serpent Ananta, floating upon the endless ocean. From his navel grows a lotus, and from that lotus Brahma emerges to shape the world. But Indian cosmology does not see creation as a single event. It is a cycle. Worlds are created, preserved, and destroyed, only to be created again. Each cycle lasts billions of years, then begins anew. Like the breath of a sleeping god, universes expand and contract eternally. This vision of creation is not only about beginnings, but about rhythm, like inhaling and exhaling, like waking and sleeping. Across the ocean, in the myths of the Maori of New Zealand, creation began with separation. In the beginning, Ranginui the Sky Father and Papachaku the Earth Mother were locked together, embracing tightly. Their children lived in darkness, pressed between them. Longing for light, the children pushed their parents apart. The sky was lifted high above, the earth lay below, and light poured into the world. This story, like so many, reflects the simple truth of life. Creation often comes with separation, with change, with the breaking of stillness. Yet it also reflects tenderness. The sky still weeps for the earth in the form of rain, and the earth still reaches upward with mist, longing for reunion. In Japan, the Kojiki tells of the divine couple Izanagi and Izanami, who stood upon the floating bridge of heaven. With a jeweled spear, they stirred the waters below. Drops fell from the spear, forming the first island. Descending to it, they gave birth to other islands, then to the gods themselves. But tragedy struck when Izanami died, giving birth to the fire god. Izanagi, grieving, descended to the underworld but could not bring her back. From this sorrow came purity rituals, and from his cleansing, new deities were born, including Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess. Here, creation is not only about land and sky, but also about loss, renewal, and the sacred balance of life and death. And so, as we drift through these myths, we see both differences and similarities. Some begin with water, others with void, others with a cosmic egg. Some speak of violence, others of love. Yet all seek to answer the same mystery. How did the world come to be? For the listener, these stories do not demand belief. They invite imagination. When you hear of Tiamat's watery chaos, picture the ocean at night, endless and dark. When you hear of Adam rising from the abyss, imagine the first light of dawn touching the horizon. When you hear of Ymir's body forming the world, picture mountains rising, seas spreading, stars scattered like sparks. These images are not puzzles to solve, but gentle dreams to rest with. Creation myths remind us that beginnings are sacred. Whether through battle or embrace, through egg or void, through water or fire, creation is the act of making meaning from nothing. It is the spark that begins the story, the first word in the great book of myth. And so, as this section closes, let the stories of origins settle softly in your thoughts. The world around you, its rivers, its stars, its skies, is not only matter and motion. It is also memory, imagination, and myth. To listen to these tales is to return to the beginning, where everything was new, where the cosmos itself was a lullaby waiting to be sung. For as long as there have been gods above and mysteries around, there have also been heroes, mortals who dared to rise above the ordinary, to wrestle with trials, and to leave their stories echoing through time. These heroes were not always perfect, nor were they always victorious. But in their journeys, struggles, and dreams, people saw reflections of themselves. Tonight, let us wander gently into their tales, following the slow footsteps of heroes who lived half in myth and half in memory. Close your eyes and imagine the ancient city of Uruk, with its high walls gleaming under the sun. Within those walls lives Gilgamesh, a king 2/3 divine and 1/3 mortal. His strength is unmatched, his will unyielding. Yet at the beginning of his tale, he is not beloved. His people cry out against his arrogance, his restless heart. To answer them, the gods send Enkidu, a wild man of the steppe, to be his equal and his friend. Gilgamesh and Enkidu's friendship becomes the heart of the world's first great epic. Together, they face trials, slaying Humbaba, guardian of the cedar forest, and killing the bull of heaven. But their triumphs awaken divine anger. Enkidu falls ill and dies, leaving Gilgamesh shattered with grief. In that grief, he sets out on his greatest journey, not for glory, but for answers. He seeks immortality, only to learn that even kings must die. What endures, the story tells us, are the walls of Uruk, the stories themselves, and the bonds of friendship. Told softly, Gilgamesh's tale is not one of thunderous battles, but of quiet truths. That even the strongest feel sorrow, that even the mightiest seek meaning, and that in the end, to be human is to walk through trials, knowing our time is fleeting, yet our story's eternal. From Mesopotamia, let us drift westward to Greece, where heroes filled the imagination of poets and dreamers. Among them stands Hercules, or Heracles, the son of Zeus. His life was one of trials, not merely of strength, but of endurance. Cursed with a madness that drove him to tragedy, Hercules sought redemption through 12 labors. Tasks so great, they seemed impossible. One by one, he faced them, slaying the Nemean lion whose hide no weapon could pierce, capturing the golden-horned Ceryneian hind, cleaning the Augean stables in a single day. capturing Cerberus, the three-headed hound of the underworld. Each labor was a story of perseverance. Each trial mirrored the struggles of life. Obstacles that seem insurmountable, challenges that test not only body but spirit. Told gently, Hercules' labors are not frantic battles, but meditations on resilience. His story reminds us that even God's children stumble, yet through effort and patience, they rise again. Another Greek hero drifts into our dreams, Odysseus, the wanderer. After the long war at Troy, his journey home became an epic of trials. He faced the one-eyed Cyclops, who trapped him in a dark cave. He braved the song of the sirens, whose voices lured sailors to destruction. He passed between Scylla and Charybdis, monsters of sea and whirlpool, where danger lurked on every side. Yet Odysseus' greatest trial was not his battles, it was his patience. For 10 long years he longed for Ithaca, for his wife Penelope and son Telemachus. Each delay tested his endurance, yet he continued. His tale is not merely about adventure, but about the quiet strength of longing, of hope that endures across distance and time. Far to the east, in India, the Ramayana tells of Prince Rama, another hero tested by trials. When his wife Sita is taken by the demon king Ravana, Rama embarks upon a journey to rescue her. His path is filled with allies, Hanuman the devoted monkey god, armies of Vanaras, and with battles both earthly and divine. Yet Rama's story is not only about victory. It is about dharma, duty, righteousness, and the trials of living a just life. Told slowly, the Ramayana becomes a gentle song of devotion. Rama's trials remind us that being a hero is not about power alone, but about walking the path of virtue even when it is difficult. His journey is one of faith, loyalty, and the eternal struggle to do what is right. In the frozen lands of the North, Norse myths gave us heroes who also faced trials. Consider Sigurd, who slew the dragon Fafnir and gained wisdom from tasting the creature's blood. His story is woven with betrayal, love, and destiny. Or think of Beowulf, from the old Anglo-Saxon tradition, facing the monster Grendel, then Grendel's mother, and finally a dragon in his final days. These heroes fought not only for glory, but for their people. Their trials were as much about protecting others as proving themselves. And in the quiet of their sagas, we hear the echoes of a world where life was harsh, yet courage gave light in the darkness. Across the world, every culture gave rise to its heroes. In Africa, the tales of Anansi the spider trickster show that wit can be as powerful as strength. In Japan, the warrior Yamato Takeru fought foes both mortal and supernatural, enduring exile and hardship. Among the Native American peoples, heroes such as Glooskap or Coyote shaped the land, bringing lessons of bravery, cleverness, and humility. What unites all these heroes is not their victories, but their trials. A hero is not one who avoids struggle, but one who faces it. The trial may be a monster in the forest, or a longing that never ends, or the weight of grief that cannot be lifted. In each story, the trial reflects something within us, our fears, our hopes, our endurance. And so, as you rest tonight, let the heroes drift through your imagination. See Gilgamesh walking the desert, seeking eternal life. See Hercules straining against impossible labors. See Odysseus watching the horizon, dreaming of home. See Rama holding fast to duty, his heart steady with devotion. Each hero is different, yet each carries the same truth, that to be human is to face trials, to stumble, to rise, and to continue. Told softly, these tales are not adventures to stir us awake, but lullabies to remind us of strength hidden within stillness. Their battles become metaphors, their journeys reflections of our own. And just as they endured, so too do we. As this section closes, picture yourself as a traveler among heroes. Not racing, not fighting, but walking gently beside them, hearing their stories as the stars shine overhead. The trials they faced are long past, yet their echoes remain, carried in story, carried in us. And as you drift further into rest, remember that every trial, no matter how heavy, is part of the journey, and every journey, like every story, carries us onward into the night. From the first breath of myth, one theme has echoed again and again, the balance between order and chaos. Humanity has always lived between these two forces. The calm of fertile rivers could give way to sudden floods. A peaceful harvest could be broken by storms or drought. In every corner of the world, people imagined gods who embodied this tension, gods who created structure, and gods who unraveled it. Tonight, let us drift into their stories, told slowly, like the ebb and flow of a tide. Let us begin in Mesopotamia, where the Enuma Elish placed chaos at the very heart of creation. Tiamat, the great serpent of the sea, rose in fury against the younger gods. Her body was chaos, untamed and terrifying. But Marduk, a god of order, faced her with his bow and net. The battle was fierce, yet when told gently, it is less thunder than rhythm. Waves crashing, winds swirling, silence breaking. When Marduk triumphed, he split her form to fashion the heavens and the earth. Chaos became the material of order, and the world itself was born from the body of disorder subdued. This myth reminds us that chaos is not simply destruction. It is the raw material of creation. From it, order rises. From storm comes calm. In Greece, too, the cosmos began with chaos. Not chaos as confusion, but chaos as the yawning gap, the formless void. From chaos came Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky. From them, order began to take shape: mountains, seas, stars. Yet chaos lingered, never fully gone. For every act of order, there was resistance, struggle, and rebellion. The Titans, children of earth and sky, were themselves forces of wild power. They ruled before the Olympians, embodying a world less governed, less refined. When Zeus rose, he and his siblings waged war against the Titans. The Titanomachy was not only a battle of gods, but of principles. Chaos of the old against the new order of Olympus. Even after their victory, Zeus and the Olympians constantly faced challenges: giants rising from the earth, monsters born from Typhon, mortals defying divine law. The Greeks understood that order was never permanent. It had to be maintained, like a flame against the wind. In Egypt, the eternal struggle took the form of Ra and Apophis. Each night, as Ra sailed his son bark through the underworld, Apophis, the great serpent of chaos, rose to devour him. The struggle never ended. It repeated with every dusk and dawn. Priests recited spells to help Ra triumph, to ensure that the sun would rise again. This cycle brought comfort, for it showed that even in the face of endless chaos, order endured. Night was not the end. It was simply part of the eternal rhythm. To listen to this story is to hear the quiet assurance that even in darkness, the promise of light remains. Far in the north, the Norse imagined the balance of order and chaos as a cosmic drama stretching from the beginning to the end of time. In the beginning, fire and ice met in the void, and from that union arose giants, gods, and the shaping of the world. The gods brought order, building Asgard above, Midgard for mortals, and Jotunheim for giants. Yet chaos lingered at the edges, wild, unpredictable, inevitable. The great serpent Jormungandr circled the seas, destined to rise at Ragnarok. Loki, the trickster, lived among the gods, yet carried chaos in his heart. And the end of all things was foretold: Ragnarok, when chaos would break loose, devouring order in fire and frost. Yet from that destruction, new life would bloom. The Norse saw order and chaos not as enemies to be vanquished forever, but as cycles, turning endlessly. Like seasons, one gave way to the other, only to return again. In Hindu tradition, the dance of Shiva captures this eternal interplay. Shiva is both destroyer and creator. His dance is not chaos alone, nor order alone, but both together. Destruction that clears the way for new creation, rhythm that gives shape to change. In his raised hand is protection, in his downward hand, release. Around him, the flames of dissolution burn, yet his dance is graceful, eternal. This vision of balance invites calm. It tells us that chaos is not to be feared, but to be understood as part of the cosmic rhythm. Like night and day, sleep and waking, it is necessary. Without it, there is no renewal. Across the world, this theme repeats. In China, yin and yang represent balance, dark and light, stillness and motion, chaos and order, not as enemies, but as partners. In Mesoamerican myth, the god Quetzalcoatl creates humanity, while his brother Tezcatlipoca brings challenge and destruction. Together, they form a world that is both fragile and alive. Every culture, in its own way, has recognized this truth. Life rests on balance. Too much order becomes stagnation. Too much chaos becomes ruin. But between them lies harmony, the gentle rhythm that allows life to endure. As you listen, let these images drift through your thoughts. See Marduk splitting the sea dragon to fashion the sky. See Zeus hurling his thunderbolts against the Titans. See Ra sailing through darkness, his bark glowing against the serpent of night. See Shiva dancing, flames swirling, yet his face serene. Each vision is different, yet all speak to the same truth, that order and chaos are threads in the same tapestry, woven together to form the cosmos. For the listener, these tales are not warnings of destruction, but lullabies of balance. They remind us that storms pass, that night gives way to dawn, that endings become beginnings. Chaos is not the enemy of rest. It is the quiet from which order emerges. Just as dreams rise from the stillness of sleep, so too does creation rise from the void. And so, as this section closes, let yourself feel the rhythm of order and chaos in your own life. The moments of stillness, the moments of change, the cycles that shape your days. Like the myths, they are not battles to be feared, but patterns to be embraced. Rest now, with the knowledge that order will always return, just as the sun rises, just as the stars shine. Chaos may stir, but within it lies the seed of harmony. And in that balance, the world continues, steady as your breath, calm as the night around you. From the earliest days of humanity, water has been both mystery and necessity. Rivers gave life to fields, carried travelers across distances, and whispered softly in the stillness of night. Seas stretched endlessly, reflecting the stars above and holding within them the power of storms. It is no wonder that so many myths are shaped by water, for rivers and oceans were among the first gods humanity ever knew. Tonight, let us drift slowly along these sacred waters, listening to the stories they carried. Let us begin with the Nile, the heart of Egypt. To the Egyptians, the Nile was not only a river but a divine presence. Each year its floods returned, laying down fertile soil that fed the land. This cycle of rising and falling was more than nature, it was myth. The god Hapi was the spirit of the Nile's flood, bringing abundance and life. Without him, Egypt would wither. With him, it thrived. But the Nile was also tied to greater myths of death and rebirth. Osiris, the god who ruled the underworld, was said to have been carried by its waters. His body, scattered by his brother Set, was gathered by Isis along the banks of the river. And just as Osiris rose again, so too did the Nile each year, assuring the people that life would return, even after death. To drift upon the Nile was to drift within the rhythm of eternity, life, death, rebirth, flowing endlessly. From the deserts of Egypt, let us move east to Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates shaped another cradle of civilization. These rivers, unpredictable and fierce, inspired myths of flood and chaos. The Epic of Gilgamesh tells of Utnapishtim, who was warned by the gods of a great flood that would sweep away humanity. He built a boat, gathered living things, and survived, resting upon a mountaintop when the waters receded. This story, older than the biblical tale of Noah, shows how rivers were both givers and takers of life. Their floods nourished the soil, yet they could also destroy. To live beside them was to live beside divine power, sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming, always beyond control. The Mesopotamians saw in their rivers the presence of gods who ruled with both kindness and severity. Further east still, in India, the Ganges has long been revered as a goddess in flowing form. To Hindus, she is Ganga, descended from heaven to earth. The story tells of King Bhajaratha, who prayed for her waters to cleanse the ashes of his ancestors. The gods agreed, but warned that her fall from the heavens would be too great for the earth to bear. So Shiva, the great god, caught her in his matted hair, softening her descent and releasing her in gentle streams. To bathe in the Ganges is to be purified. To drink from her waters is to touch the divine. Even today, her banks are lined with pilgrims, her flow eternal. In myth and in reality, she is a bridge between heaven and earth, life and afterlife, time and eternity. In Greece, rivers were personified as gods, each one with a face, a presence, a story. The river Scamander, near Troy, rose in fury against Achilles when the hero filled its waters with the bodies of the slain. The gods of Olympus themselves had to intervene to calm its wrath. And then there was the Styx, the most famous of all rivers in myth. Flowing through the underworld, it was sacred even to the gods. To swear an oath upon the Styx was unbreakable. Its waters were said to burn like fire to mortals, yet to gods it bound truth itself. Picture the Styx, dark and silent, winding through Hades' realm. Souls drift upon its current, ferried by Charon in his boat. For the Greeks, the Styx was more than a river. It was the boundary between worlds, the line between life and death, order and eternity. In the north, the Norse spoke of seas that circled the earth. Jormungandr, the world serpent, lay hidden beneath the waves, coiled so vast that his body encircled all of Midgard. When he stirred, storms shook the oceans. When he rose, Ragnarok would come. Yet the seas also carried the gods upon their adventures, their ships cutting through the waves as stars glittered overhead. For seafaring people, the ocean was both pathway and peril. It gave fish for food and routes for trade, yet storms could take lives without warning. To imagine a serpent in its depths was to give shape to the fear and respect the sea demanded. Across the wide Pacific, the Polynesians saw the ocean not as barrier, but as home. Their canoes carried them across distances so vast they seemed like miracles. Guided by stars, winds, and waves, they believed the sea itself spoke to those who listened. Myths told of Tangaroa, god of the ocean, father of fish and creatures of the deep. His moods shaped voyages, calm seas blessing the journey, storms warning of his displeasure. For the Polynesians, the sea was never empty. It was alive, filled with ancestors' spirits, with gods, with endless life below. To sail upon it was to sail through a living world, carried gently by its power. In Japan, the sea held both beauty and terror. The god Susanoo, stormbringer and brother of the sun goddess Amaterasu, was tied to its waves. His tempests could wreck ships, yet he also brought gifts from the sea's depths. One of Japan's most famous myths tells of Urashima Taro, a fisherman who saved a turtle and was carried beneath the waves to the Dragon Palace. There he found wonders beyond imagining, only to return and find that centuries had passed on land. The sea, in this tale, is not only vast, it bends time itself, reminding us of its eternal mystery. Everywhere, rivers and seas reflected the human soul. In Mesoamerican myth, the waters of creation carry gods who shaped the earth. In Celtic tradition, wells and streams were sacred places where the otherworld touched this one. Among Native American peoples, rivers were seen as living beings, teachers of patience, endurance, and flow. As you listen, let these waters flow softly through your thoughts. Imagine the steady current of the Nile, carrying silt to fields that glisten in the sun. Picture the Ganges descending like a silver ribbon from Shiva's hair. Hear the slow lap of the Styx, dark and silent in the underworld. Feel the vast swell of oceans, endless as dreams, carrying canoes across starlit horizons. Rivers and seas are not only places on earth, they are symbols within us. They remind us of flow, of cycles, of continuity. A river is always moving, yet always itself. An ocean is vast and changing, yet eternal. To rest with their myths is to rest within the rhythm of life itself. And so, as this section closes, let the sound of imagined water lull you into stillness. Picture yourself lying by a gentle river, its current whispering softly. Above you, stars shimmer like reflections on the surface. The water flows on, eternal, calm, carrying with it the stories of gods and mortals, of life and afterlife, of creation and return. And as you drift further into rest, you too are carried, gently, endlessly, like a leaf upon the current of sacred waters. For as long as people have wondered where the world began, they have also wondered where it ends. What happens when breath leaves the body, when eyes close for the last time, when the warmth of life fades? Every culture, every civilization, has imagined a journey beyond death. These visions were not only fears, but comforts, maps of the unknown, guides for souls, stories that softened the silence. Tonight, let us wander slowly into those imagined realms, the underworlds of myth, where the afterlife awaits with shadows and stars. Let us begin in Greece, where the underworld was known simply as Hades, named for its ruler. To enter this realm, the soul first crossed the river Styx, ferried by Charon in his small, creaking boat. Coins were placed upon the eyes or tongues of the dead to pay his fee. Without them, the soul would wander along the riverbanks, restless. Once across, the dead came before the judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, who weighed their lives. Some souls were sent to the Asphodel Meadows, a place of quiet neutrality, where they wandered in gentle forgetfulness. The virtuous few were sent to the Elysian fields, filled with light, music, and eternal spring. The wicked were cast into Tartarus, a deep abyss where they endured endless punishment. Yet even here, in the land of shadows, the Greeks imagined a balance. Not all were punished, not all were rewarded. Most simply rested, their lives folded into the quiet hum of eternity. Hades himself was not a cruel god, but a patient ruler, steady as the earth itself. In his realm, death was not chaos, but order. From Greece, let us move to Egypt, where the journey after death was as detailed and solemn as life itself. The Egyptians believed that the soul traveled through the Duat, the underworld, filled with gates, guardians, and trials. To navigate, the dead needed spells from the Book of the Dead, written on papyrus or inscribed upon tomb walls. These were not fearful words, but gentle instructions, like lullabies guiding the soul step by step. At last, the soul came before Osiris, Lord of the Dead. The heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, symbol of truth and balance. If the heart was light, the soul entered the field of reeds, a paradise where life continued in beauty and peace. If heavy with sin, the heart was devoured by Ammit, the soul ceasing to exist. This vision of the afterlife was not only a judgment, but a comfort. To the Egyptians, death was not an ending but a continuation, another stage of the eternal cycle. Just as the sun set and rose again, so too did the soul journey into darkness and emerge into light. Further north, in Norse mythology, the dead traveled to many different realms. Warriors who fell bravely in battle were chosen by the Valkyries, carried to Odin's hall, Valhalla. There, they feasted and trained, awaiting Ragnarok, when they would fight again at the end of days. Others were taken to Freya's hall, Folkvanger, a place of honor and rest. But for most souls, the destination was Helheim, ruled by Hel, daughter of Loki. Contrary to later imaginings, Helheim was not a place of fire or torment, but a cold and quiet realm. There, the dead dwelled in stillness, their lives behind them, their days measured in shadows. It was neither punishment nor reward, simply a continuation, a place where the weary found rest. In the Norse imagination, death was not frightening but inevitable, part of the same cycle that governed seasons, storms, and stars. Like winter, it came, and like spring, it gave way to renewal. In Mesopotamia, the underworld was known as Irkalla, or the land of no return. Souls who entered did not rise again. It was ruled by Ereshkigal, queen of the dead, who sat in darkness with her attendants. The dead ate dust and drank from shallow waters, a shadow of life above. Even kings and heroes entered this fate. Gilgamesh himself, seeking immortality, learned that no matter one's strength, the underworld awaited. Though somber, this vision also carried a truth, that life was precious because it was fleeting. The Mesopotamians cherished their days upon earth, knowing that in death, all shared the same stillness. In India, the afterlife is shaped not by a single destination, but by cycles of rebirth. In Hindu belief, the soul, or Atman, journeys through samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, until liberation, or moksha, is reached. Yet there are realms between. The god Yama, lord of death, presides over Naraka, where souls face temporary trials before returning to life. For others, higher heavens await, realms of bliss where gods and ancestors dwell. But all is impermanent. The soul moves onward, carried by karma, toward eventual release. This vision of afterlife is not final, but flowing, like a river. Death is not the end of the story, but a page within a book that never ceases. It is both gentle and infinite, offering the hope that every ending is also a beginning. Across the ocean, the Mayans envisioned Xibalba, the place of fright, ruled by lords of death. Yet their tales were not only of fear, but of courage. In the Popol Vuh, the hero twins descended into Xibalba, facing trials of darkness, fire, and trickery. They emerged victorious, transforming into the sun and moon. Here, the underworld was not finality but transformation, a place where death itself gave birth to light. In Polynesian traditions, the spirits of the dead traveled across the sea, sailing to islands beyond the horizon. Some dwelled with ancestors, some merged with the gods, some became stars shining above. The ocean itself was the bridge, carrying souls softly into the beyond. Every culture imagined the afterlife not only as destination, but as reflection of life. If life was fertile, the afterlife was abundant. If life was harsh, the afterlife was still and cold. Yet in every vision, the underworld was not chaos but order, a way of making sense of what lay beyond the final breath. As you listen, let these images drift through your thoughts. Picture the boat upon the Styx, its oars dipping silently into black waters. Imagine the weighing of the heart against a feather, the scales balancing with eternal care. See the Valkyries flying above a battlefield, lifting souls into the sky. Feel the stillness of Helheim, its halls quiet beneath endless snow. Watch the hero twins rise from the depths of Xibalba, glowing as sun and moon. Each story is different, yet all carry the same whisper. Death is not an end, but a passage. The soul continues, into shadow, into light, into cycles, into stars. And so, as this section closes, let yourself rest within that thought. Death, in myth, is not terror but transition. A doorway, a river, a sea, a quiet hall where all eventually gather. It is the calm that follows effort, the night that follows day, the silence that follows song. In the myths of underworlds, there is sorrow, but also comfort, an assurance that beyond life's trials, there is rest, eternal and steady as the breath you take now. Since the beginning of time, humanity has lifted its eyes toward the heights. Mountains, towering above valleys and plains, seemed to touch the sky itself. Their peaks vanished into clouds, their slopes tested strength and endurance. Their silence spoke of something beyond the ordinary world. To many cultures, mountains were not simply landforms, but sacred spaces, bridges between heaven and earth, homes of gods, and places where stories unfolded. Tonight, let us wander slowly among these sacred landscapes, listening to their myths as though climbing gently through layers of mist. Let us begin with Mount Olympus in Greece, perhaps the most famous sacred mountain of all. Rising high in northern Greece, it was imagined as the dwelling place of the Olympian gods. Zeus ruled from its summit, with Hera, Athena, Apollo, and the others by his side. From Olympus, thunderbolts fell, prophecies were spoken, and destinies decided. Yet for the Greeks, Olympus was not merely geography, it was imagination. Few climbed its slopes in ancient times, and so its summit remained unseen, hidden in clouds. This mystery allowed it to exist both as mountain and myth. When mortals looked upward, they were not only seeing stone and snow, they were gazing toward eternity, where gods feasted in halls of shining marble, their laughter echoing in the thin air. From Greece, let us drift eastward to India, where another mountain holds eternal reverence, Mount Kailash. Rising in the Himalayas, its peak glimmers with snow, untouched by human footprints, for it is considered too sacred to climb. To Hindus, it is the home of Lord Shiva, where he dwells in meditation, his presence filling the mountain with divine silence. To Buddhists, it is the axis of the universe, Mount Meru, the cosmic pillar around which all of creation turns. To Jains and Bon practitioners, too, it is holy ground. Kailash is not simply stone, it is a mandala of myth. Pilgrims travel not to conquer its summit but to walk around its base, a journey of devotion called the Kora. Step by step, they circle the mountain, believing that one circuit purifies the soul, many circuits freeing it entirely. Imagine the stillness of that journey. Wind sweeping snow across slopes, prayer flags fluttering, footsteps crunching upon ancient paths. It is not a climb, but a meditation, a soft surrender to the sacred. In Egypt, sacred landscapes took another form. Mountains of desert and cliffs rising along the Nile. Here, tombs were carved into stone, sanctuaries hidden in the Valley of the Kings. The cliffs were not only barriers of earth, they were thresholds between worlds, entrances into the realm of the afterlife. To the Egyptians, the landscape itself was myth, each rock a reminder of eternity. One mountain, called Ju, was believed to be the very horizon where the sun god Ra rose each morning. The desert, harsh and silent, was seen not as emptiness but as sacred space, where gods revealed themselves in stillness. Standing there, beneath the blazing sky, one felt the nearness of eternity. In the lands of the Hebrews, Mount Sinai rose as a place of revelation. Here, Moses ascended to receive the commandments, clouds and thunder surrounding the peak. The mountain was not climbed by many. It was approached with awe, its summit shrouded in divine presence. To imagine Sinai is to imagine silence broken by voice, the eternal speaking into the world of time. For those who listened to the stories, Sinai was more than stone. It was a reminder that sacred truth often comes from high places where earth meets sky, where silence allows the heart to hear. In Japan, Mount Fuji rises gracefully, its snow-capped peak reflected in lakes and fields below. To the Japanese, Fuji has long been more than a mountain. It is a spirit, a kami. Pilgrims have climbed its slopes for centuries, seeing in its beauty the path to purity and enlightenment. Legends speak of immortal beings dwelling upon its summit, of fires within shaping its heart, of artists and poets capturing its form as symbol of eternity. When one gazes upon Fuji, it is not only the symmetry of its peak that inspires, but the sense that in its stillness lies a connection between earth and heaven, humanity and the divine. The Norse, too, had sacred mountains and landscapes. Yggdrasil, the great world tree, was not stone but served the same role, a cosmic axis connecting heavens, earth, and underworld. Yet beyond the tree, the mountains of Scandinavia were filled with spirits, trolls, and giants. To wander into their slopes was to step into the realm of myth. Imagine a northern mountain, its peaks crowned with snow, its valleys deep with silence. For the Norse, such places were thresholds, where mortals might encounter beings beyond the human, where the ordinary world faded into mystery. Among the Inca in South America, mountains were called apis, spirits and protectors of the people. The Andes, vast and towering, were alive with sacred presence. Offerings were left upon their slopes, prayers whispered to their peaks. Machu Picchu itself, though hidden for centuries, was built as a sanctuary among mountains, blending stone with sky. The Inca saw mountains not as background, but as ancestors, beings of power who watched over fields, valleys, and villages. To them, the Andes were not only high ground, but living presences, eternal guardians. Across the world, landscapes themselves became sacred stories. For the Maori of New Zealand, mountains were ancestors, their peaks telling tales of battles and love. For Native Americans, mesas and canyons were holy ground, each curve of stone carrying the memory of spirits. The land itself was scripture, written not with ink but with wind, water, and time. As you listen, let these landscapes form gently in your imagination. See Olympus hidden in clouds, where gods feast in marble halls. Picture Kailash, untouched and shining, circled by pilgrims in silence. Stand at Sinai, clouds drifting, thunder rumbling softly in the distance. Gaze upon Fuji, serene and eternal, rising like a dream above fields of green. Wander into the Andes, their peaks towering, their spirits watching. Mountains are symbols of stillness and striving, of distance and closeness. They remind us that what is highest is also sacred, that silence itself can be divine. To rest beneath a mountain is to feel small, yet safe, sheltered by stone that has stood for millennia. And so, as this section closes, imagine yourself resting upon the slope of a sacred mountain. The air is cool, the sky vast, the earth steady beneath you. Somewhere above, unseen, gods and spirits dwell. Somewhere below, rivers wind their way to seas. You are between heaven and earth, part of the landscape, part of the story. Rest now, as the mountains rest, silent, eternal, steady as your breath. Their myths endure, their peaks remain, their presence calms. And as you drift deeper into stillness, you too are held in that sacred landscape, timeless and serene. Not all figures in myth are mighty kings, solemn gods, or noble heroes. Some move through stories in lighter steps, clever, mischievous, and restless. These are the tricksters and wanderers, beings who bend the rules, play with boundaries, and remind us that life is not only order, but surprise. They deceive, they laugh, they stumble, they wander, but in their paths, we often glimpse truths that no solemn tale could show. Tonight, let us drift softly into their stories, listening not for thunder, but for whispers of wit and wonder. Let us begin in the cold north, with Loki of Norse myth. Loki was not a god of thunder or war, nor a god of harvest or sun. He was a shapeshifter, a deceiver, a wanderer who slipped between roles. Sometimes he aided the gods, using his cunning to help them triumph. At other times, he betrayed them, stirring trouble that would not fade. One tale tells of how the gods sought to build a great wall around Asgard. A builder promised to finish it quickly if given the sun, the moon, and the goddess Freya as payment. The gods agreed, but only if he could finish in one season. When it seemed he would succeed, Loki took the form of a mare and distracted the builder's stallion, slowing the work. From this trick came not only victory for the gods, but also the birth of Sleipnir, Odin's eight-legged horse. Yet Loki's mischief was never harmless. His tricks often led to loss, his laughter to sorrow. At the end of time, it was foretold that Loki would stand against the gods in Ragnarok, bringing ruin. Still, his presence was essential, for without him, the Norse myths would lack their balance. He was chaos within order, mischief within solemnity, a reminder that life is unpredictable. From the north, let us wander to Africa, where Anansi the spider spins his web of tales. Anansi is small, yet his cleverness is vast. He outsmarts stronger animals, tricks the proud, and teaches lessons through laughter. One story tells of how Anansi wished to own all the world's stories. The sky god Niam agreed, but only if Anansi could capture creatures no one had dared to face. With wit rather than strength, Anansi succeeded, and the stories became his to share. From then on, tales told by firelight were called Anansi stories, gifts of the spider who carried wisdom and laughter. Anansi's tricks often leave him embarrassed, caught in his own schemes. Yet even his failures teach. In his web, we see the weaving of life, delicate, surprising, always connected. His stories remind us that wit can triumph where strength cannot, and that laughter can carry wisdom as surely as solemn words. In Greece, Hermes played a similar role, a god of travelers, messengers, and thieves. Born in the morning, he stole Apollo's cattle by evening, hiding their tracks by walking backward. When confronted, he played the lyre he had crafted, so beautifully that Apollo forgave him. Hermes wandered easily between worlds, Olympus above, earth below, and even the underworld, guiding souls with gentle steps. He was swift, clever, never still. To mortals, he was a god of luck and change, the sudden turn of fortune, the whisper that leads travelers down new paths. In him, we see the wandering spirit of curiosity, never content with stillness, always seeking the next horizon. In Native American traditions, the trickster often appears as Coyote. He is foolish and wise, destructive and creative, selfish and generous. In one tale, he steals fire from the gods to give it to humanity, a gift of warmth and survival. In another, his greed brings disaster. Coyote stumbles through stories, yet in his stumbles we see ourselves. He teaches through mistakes, through mischief, through the simple truth that even error has meaning. To hear Coyote's tales is to be reminded that life is not a straight path, but a winding one, filled with surprises and lessons hidden in laughter. Wanderers, too, move through myths, not mischievous always, but restless, searching, unable to remain still. Odysseus, whom we met before, is one such wanderer, carried across seas for years. His cunning is trickster-like, yet his journey is one of longing and return. Another is Cain in the Hebrew tradition, cast out after the first murder, doomed to wander the earth. His story is not playful, but solemn, a reminder that wandering can also mean exile, separation, the search for a place that may never be found. In Chinese tales, Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, embodies both trickster and wanderer. Born from stone, he gained incredible powers, strength, speed, and the ability to transform. Yet his mischief angered the heavens, and he was imprisoned. Later, he joined the monk Xuanzang on a journey to India, his restless spirit channeled into devotion. Sun Wukong leaps across clouds, shifts into shapes, and plays tricks upon demons, yet his wandering becomes a path of growth. Why do tricksters and wanderers appear in so many myths? Perhaps because they reflect the restless part of us, the curiosity that questions, the mischief that breaks rules, the longing that pushes us beyond familiar paths. They remind us that not all wisdom comes from solemn order. Some wisdom comes from mistakes, from laughter, from journeys without clear destinations. As you rest, let these figures drift softly into your thoughts. Picture Loki, sly and shifting, his smile hiding secrets. Picture Anansi, weaving his web, small yet clever, his laughter echoing in the dark. Picture Hermes, winged sandals glimmering, walking easily between worlds. Picture Coyote, stumbling, laughing, falling, and rising again. Picture Sun Wukong, leaping among clouds, staff in hand, his mischief bound to destiny. They are not gods of thunder or rulers of nations. They are voices of play, of wandering, of surprise. And in their presence, we are reminded that life is not only serious. It is also playful, unpredictable, alive with sudden turns. Told slowly, their tales are not noisy or restless, but soothing in their lightness. They break the weight of solemn myths, offering contrast. They remind us that even in stillness, laughter can echo. Even in dreams, mischief can dance lightly across the edges. And so, as this section closes, rest with the thought of the wanderer. Life's path is not always straight, nor always clear. Sometimes we stumble, sometimes we play, sometimes we trick ourselves. Yet in all of it, there is meaning, hidden in the web, carried in the laughter, whispered in the footsteps that wander onward. Rest now with the tricksters. Rest with the wanderers. Let their lightness carry you further into calm, like a smile in the quiet of night, like a gentle step upon an endless road. Not all figures in myth are warriors or tricksters. Some stand apart, quiet and thoughtful, their wisdom shining more brightly than weapons or strength. These are the sages, teachers, poets, and guides who shaped the minds of civilizations. Their words moved gently, like streams over stone, carving truth into memory. Tonight, let us sit beside them, listening not for thunder, but for the calm whisper of wisdom that has carried across centuries. In Greece, the poet Orpheus embodied this wisdom. Orpheus was no king, no conqueror, but a musician whose songs could charm all of nature. His lyre sang so sweetly that rivers stilled to listen, trees leaned closer, and even the stones softened. With his music, he soothed sorrow and turned chaos into harmony. The most famous tale of Orpheus is his descent into the underworld to reclaim his beloved Eurydice. With song alone, he softened the heart of Hades, persuading the Lord of the Dead to release her. Yet as he led her back toward the light, he turned to look before reaching the surface, and she vanished forever. His wisdom was not in triumph, but in reminder that love and loss are intertwined, and that art can carry us through sorrow even when it cannot erase it. Listening to Orpheus is like listening to the heart itself, fragile, tender, yet filled with beauty. From Greece, let us travel to Egypt, where wisdom was personified in Thoth, the ibis-headed god of writing, knowledge, and time. Thoth was said to have given writing to humanity, teaching them how to record speech upon papyrus. He measured the days, guided the moon, and weighed truth in the halls of judgment. Thoth's wisdom was not noisy but precise, like the steady ticking of a clock, like ink drying on parchment. He reminded mortals that memory fades, but words endure. To write is to give life to thought beyond death, to let wisdom flow forward into future generations. In Thoth, we see the sage as recorder, guardian of knowledge, ensuring that truth is never lost in silence. In China, the sage Laozi offered wisdom in words as soft as flowing water. His teachings, gathered in the Tao Te Ching, speak not of conquest but of balance. The way that can be spoken is not the eternal way, he said, reminding us that the deepest truths cannot be captured fully in words. Laozi taught the Tao, the way, a path of harmony between opposites, of yielding rather than forcing, of stillness that overcomes noise. Water, he said, is soft, yet it wears away stone. The sage does not seek power, yet his presence shapes the world. Picture him, an old man upon an ox, riding away into the mountains, leaving behind his words like seeds scattered in the wind. His wisdom is not thunderous but calm, a steady whisper reminding us to walk lightly, to rest deeply, to live in balance with the flow of life. Far in India, sages known as rishis spoke hymns that became the Vedas, sacred songs of devotion and truth. They did not conquer lands, but opened pathways into the divine. Sitting in forests, meditating by rivers, they listened to the hum of the universe and shaped it into verse. One such teaching speaks of the self, the Atman, as eternal. You are not the body, nor the mind, but the self beyond change. This wisdom carried comfort, reminding people that death is not an end, but a doorway. To hear the words of the rishis is to hear assurance that within silence lies strength, and within stillness, eternity. Another sage, the Buddha, offered wisdom through compassion. Born as Siddhartha Gautama, he left behind his palace to seek freedom from suffering. Under the Bodhi tree, he meditated until enlightenment came. His wisdom was not hidden in riddles, but spoken in gentle truths. That life holds suffering, that desire binds us, and that peace lies in release. His path, the middle way, invited listeners not to extremes, but to balance, kindness, and mindfulness. In the traditions of the Hebrews, Solomon was remembered as the wise king, who asked not for riches or victory, but for understanding. His judgments were famed, his proverbs still carried forward. Wisdom is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Solomon's wisdom was practical as well as poetic, guidance for living with fairness, humility, and faith. To listen to him is to hear wisdom rooted in daily life, not far-off heavens. His voice reminds us that wisdom is not only in lofty words, but in the choices we make each day, gentle and steady. Among Native American traditions, sages were often elders, keepers of stories. Their wisdom was not written in books, but carried in memory, told beside firelight. Through myths of animals, ancestors, and spirits, they taught respect for the earth, balance with nature, and humility before the vastness of the world. An elder might say, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children." Such wisdom is not bound to time. It flows quietly, like wind through grass, reminding us that our lives are part of something far larger, something we must honor. Why do these sages endure in memory? Because their wisdom is not loud. It is soft, steady, and timeless. Warriors may conquer, kings may rule, but sages speak words that echo across centuries. They remind us that true strength is not always in force, but in patience, not always in shouting, but in listening, not always in rushing, but in resting. As you listen, let their presence drift softly into your imagination. Hear Orpheus strumming his lyre, his music gentle as breath. See Thoth, quill in hand, recording truth upon papyrus. Picture Laozi, his ox moving slowly along a mountain path, words of balance flowing behind him like water. Imagine the Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree, silent yet radiant, his stillness a teaching greater than speech. See Solomon, weighing choices with calm understanding. Picture an elder, firelight upon their face, voice steady with stories of earth and sky. Each sage sits quietly, yet their presence fills the world. Their words are not commands, but invitations, gentle reminders to pause, to breathe, to see clearly. Told slowly, their teachings are not puzzles, but lullabies. They do not stir restless thoughts, they calm them. They do not call for haste, they invite patience. Their wisdom, like soft light, does not blind but warms. And so, as this section closes, let yourself rest within their circle. Imagine sitting among sages in a quiet grove, the night sky above, the earth steady beneath. No battles rage here, no storms break, only silence, broken by gentle words. Their wisdom is timeless, steady as your heartbeat, calm as your breath. Rest now with the sages. Rest with their words. Let their wisdom guide you not into worry, but into stillness, carrying you gently, softly, into deeper